All right. Well, it is noon. So, in the essence of respecting your time, we'll go ahead and get started. So, good afternoon, everyone joining us, and thanks for attending the IPHA third Thursday Lunch and Learn. This is our web series. My name is Jenna Heyer, and I am a member of our education committee. So, we have a great season planned. Hopefully, you can join us each month. This session will be recorded and posted to the IPHA YouTube channel following the completion of it. So just a few housekeeping items. Your microphone should be muted, and you can also put questions in the chat Q&A. You can put them in and send them to the entire group, or you can send them just to myself and I will share them at the end of the presentation. So there should be plenty of time at the end for live discussion. So you're welcome to also take yourself off mute at that point and turn on your camera, interact and engage. So for now, I'll pass it over to DeAndreya Searight, who is going to talk to us today about social isolation. So I
Yeah,
will let you introduce yourself and we'll go from there. Thanks, Deandra.
perfect. Thank you so much, Jenna, for passing the mic on. I just want to let everybody know I'm a little nervous. No, not really. You'll get that feel from me as the presentation goes further. My name is DeAndreya Searight. I'm a certified health education specialist. I currently work for Humana as a senior sales representative. Prior to that, where my passion lies is I was a DSNP community engagement executive. And so I worked with a lot of people that had Medicare and Medicaid. So I dealt with a lot of seniors and I dealt with a lot of people that had disabilities. My passion is in public health stems from making sure everyone is up and running, getting their preventative health getting their preventative health equity, dispelling health disparities, along with a plethora of other things. I just call me the public health warrior is what I like to deem myself as. And so I know that many of you are the same. We can share the title at any time. We're all here for a common reason and for the better good of people. So today I would like to talk about uh, social isolation um, after COVID. So just give me a moment. I'm going to share my screen properly, um, and we will go from there. All right. So if everybody could in the chat give me a thumbs up if you could see my screen. Or someone put in the chat, yes, I can see your screen, Jenna. Okay, good. Thank you so much, Kim. So let's talk about combating social isolation. And as we know, I won't go Webster Dictionary for you, but I will say social isolation, basically the feeling of being alone or being alone. And for that. And so if we think about, because I feel like our years have been congruent and we skipped from 2020 all the way to 2024, right? We can still remember those things that we did during COVID, or how alone we felt during COVID. So post COVID, we were interacting with family, friends, we were doing all the things. And then just immediately, March of 2020, we had to uh, pick up our things and be at home if we weren't already at home. And I will speak for myself when I say I didn't want to be at home. I've never been a work at home person. What do you mean I have to be work at home? I gotta get an office. I gotta talk to people at work in my home. I wanted to keep work and work separate. I wanted to keep work separate. Um, and so when we moved into COVID, right, when we're all masking up, we're getting N95s, we're doing all of those things. And now, even if outside of the calls for us to stay in the house, we were outside in that. Even if we knew, like our friends were like, "Oh, I'm going to be outside too, getting grocery or whatever," we didn't know who were behind the mask. We had math acne. We had all of those things. Like, who is this person behind the mask? Um, and so even with the interactions that we had, we were 6 feet apart. We were elbowing each other. to say hi. We didn't know. We didn't know what we were gonna do during COVID and how we can maintain being social. And so now we're in the house. We just have our grocery. We have our grocery, our cat, our dog, and our kids, right? During that time. And again, speaking for me, I'm absolutely going crazy in the house, doing work in my house, going up and down the stairs, doing the same thing because now my anxiety has kicked in. I don't want to go outside. I don't want to do COVID. I don't, I don't want to contract COVID. I don't want to do any of those things. So now that we talked about who's behind the mask, or now that we discovered we don't know who's behind the mask, right? So let's talk about the affected demographics. Um, so we have our parents. Our parents were affected by the demographic because now we turned into teachers. How many of us turned into teachers? Let's be interactive. How many of us were able to turn into teachers during that time? You could just give a thumbs up or you could type into the chat. I turned into a teacher. Or some of you have already were, professors. But as a parent, we turned into teachers. We had to put that hat on for us. And then we had to relearn new math. This wasn't the math that we learned in early 2000s or 90s. We had to learn the new math. And then let's talk about seniors. The seniors were affected. Family couldn't go to nursing homes. Family couldn't say hi if they were in the hospital. We had to take turns. We couldn't do our weekly bingo games with the seniors. We couldn't do the things that we normally would. And then this demographic, seniors are already affected by isolation, right? Being in nursing homes and things like that, because they may have their friends, right? But they don't have their family. And so I hate this picture. It totally tells you, like, shows you how seniors were during COVID, just waiting for someone to come visit, being able to come outside of their room. And to think about, when we think about Alzheimer's, this was actually their increasing them being a numbered Alzheimer's person. This decreased their brain ability. They, unless someone dropped off some puzzles or Sudoku, or their brain functions were decreasing during COVID due to social isolation. Let's talk about the kids though. The kids were probably the best people during social isolation. They didn't have to go to school. They didn't have to wake up early. Social isolation didn't affect the kids, personally wise, but brain functionality and things, it increased their screen time. It increased their screen time dramatically. In 2019, we were seeing that they averaged, a Common Sense Media averaged them for about 7 hours. Now we're seeing that they're doing that in a day. Outside of COVID, they're doing 7 hours of screen time a day. And we can say, parents have that controllability over it, but during COVID, schools had to think on their feet too. Schools had to send computers home. They had to think about hybrid education. How are we going to maintain the kids and their learning amid COVID, like during COVID? How do we do that? And so these are just some of the demographics that were affected. We're not talking about the providers or psychologists and psychiatrists who were probably we're seeing a higher number of telehealth patients during social isolation, because depression increased, mental health. We saw all of those things increasing during COVID, and it was just due to someone not being able to be alone. And how do we combat that? So now let's open it up, and I want to open up the chat, and I want to talk about how do we move forward from during social isolation. And for me in Iowa, so I covered the entire state of Iowa. So some of the things that I incorporated was working with local nonprofits or local organizations on how can we collaborate together? And so here in Polk County is where I primarily am. Polk County and Dallas and Warren County is where the height of my footprint was. And so what did I do? I connected with organizations like Urban Dreams, Creative Visions. I connected with the senior centers. I connected with schools, and then our local homeless shelter. What do we do? Let's create. Let's not talk. As you can see, I don't like a lot of words. Let's put together some things that we can move forward on. Let's do some bingo night. Let's do family things. Here in my neighborhood, we take turns. We take turns doing a bonfire night. Of course, it has been very, very cold, so we haven't had bonfire. But connecting with your local, either personally in your personal life, you have the ability connect with your neighbors, see if you can take turns hosting different game nights, family night, movie night, things like that. Connect with your local organization. Hey, how can we collaborate together to get people to come out, whether it's you can have a movie night with an organization, you can have bingo, you can do a game night where, you all are playing different games at different tables. One thing that I love and was a top memory for me is going to a nursing home and doing Uno. And this is a game that my family loves. We play Uno all the time. But that nostalgia for our seniors was crazy. They were like, oh my gosh, I haven't played this since the 80s. And I was like, 80s? I'm thinking 80s, I haven't played it. So they're relearning these things. And so when you think about it, their brain functionality increases because they're relearning stuff. A lot of times when we get older, we try to do things in sequence that we've already remembered. The saying goes, about a bike. Once you learn how to ride a bike, you don't forget how to ride a bike, right? And then so we sat there and we talked about Uno and how to play it. And we played it the regular way, but then we started introducing some of the things that teenagers have started doing. Like, no, you can put more cards down. Like if I tell you to draw four, and you're gonna draw four, you're gonna draw two. And it's just the thing, like, throwing those cards down and saying, oh my gosh, this person, you get to draw six and you skipped a turn. So now your hand is building. So those laughters, um, gaining those seeing those smiles again. We're all outside of math. So what I want us to think about and focus on for the Q&A part of things of this session and collaboration, we're all here and we all have a common focus, and that's public health. How can we do it? And today's topic is social isolation. So how do we, with our individual organizations, how can we collaborate together to dispel social isolation or get us back outside of, our math behavior, not wanting to be around people? Or, I'm happy that we don't have to check foreheads before, check temperatures before people come into our houses. I'm happy that we're outside of that. But within our different spectrums serving in the entire Iowa, what are some ideas that come to your mind now that we're talking about social isolation? What can we do better to better the constituents that we come across today? So that's what I would like for you all to put in the chat. What ideas come to your mind in your organizations? How can you help? If anybody wants to put it in the chat. I don't know if we can come off mute. Can we come off mute, Jenna? If anybody.
Yeah, they should be able to. So feel free.
Yeah, feel free. I want this to be a collaborative effort because you just never know whether you have a neighbor organization that say, hey, let's, connect together. And I know, when we're dealing with things, resources can be kind of tight, but how can we connect together so resources isn't a problem?
Yeah. So one thing I think of is, we all had a couple years to develop new habits because of the pandemic and because of being isolated. Um, And those habits can be negative. And so I think about too, like having more trainings in the workplace, maybe, or for our community members of how to break our habits. And kind of get back on, say we started using social media a couple more hours a day during the pandemic. That's a difficult habit to suddenly just break out of and try to resume your normal life without doing that. And so that is one thing that I can think of that I haven't seen much of, but I think could be done, especially for youth groups.
Thank you. I totally agree. Would anybody else like to come off mute and share an idea or drop it in the chat?
So one thing I was thinking about, it seems like during the pandemic, obviously a lot of us had a lot of, well, maybe not people who are working in public health, but a lot of folks had a lot of time at home, either to watch the news or really to go down the rabbit hole of social media. And I think about, kind of how radicalizing that has been for some portions of our communities, and how folks are looking for connection and unfortunately finding it in kind of dangerous ways. And it just makes me think about, like, what is a way that we can help with social cohesion, for some of these populations, so that they're not seeking, maybe numbers in organizations that may not be helpful. And I think about this a lot in men, in young men, especially because it doesn't seem to be as like socially acceptable to just like, oh, I just need to have somebody to talk to, or, there's just some stigma around that. And a lot of that, their connectivity was in like doing things or sports or, things where they could engage, socially. And then there's been kind of like the radicalization of, and I'm not saying all men or anything like that, but we've just kind of seen some more of that where people were looking for connection. So I don't know how to solve that. And I'm not quite sure what to propose. I keep thinking about, about men. And just kind of how, especially because of the almost stigma around the socialization, that seems different from what women have, like the relationships that women have. So I don't know how to fix it. It's just a thought that I have.
No, I agree. I definitely agree. You saw, and like you said, the relationships that women have, we can hop on FaceTime, right? That, FaceTime increase. Women can hop on FaceTime and have those conversations, and we felt like we've been at brunch with our girls, right? But when we think about men and even teenage men, even going into the kids, their socialization time is, I'm going to hang out with my boys. We're going golfing. We're going to tee up, or we're going to go play basketball and things like that. And so when we think about COVID, that took all of that away, right? Um, and so now they're trying to go back into that. But as Jenna said, they may have picked up other habits that they're happy with being at home. So what do we do? What do we do? It's gonna take a pioneer, and even for you, it may take you to say, okay, I want men to meet me at the golf course. Let's just meet at the golf course, and let's just play, do a 9-hole. So it may not solve it, but the interest of, men, like when women have interest in their habits, right? Oh, you want to go play ball? You want to play, you want to go, golfing or whatever. Just, put it out there. Hey, can I get about 10 men that want to do 9-hole this Saturday? Let's go and start up that way. And so you all have a great time, and then they're gonna, of course they're gonna ask, well, when we get to do this again? But of course, they like their silence. And I don't know if we can be silent.
Oh, for sure. Because I feel like, I mean, during the pandemic, like, especially like, I mean, my husband, like he's an introvert. He was living his best life, like we don't have to make plans. I don't have to go anywhere. And I'm like, sometimes I need you to like go somewhere.
Right.
Like I can't be the only person in your life because I have a lot of people in my life, but I can't be everything for you,
Right.
you know?
So let's take a poll for the men that we have on the call today. How many of you would be interested in going out to a golf outing? How many? Jenna, did we get any thumbs up or see, we got somebody.
I don't see a thumbs up yet. I don't have a formal poll, but
No, it's okay. It's okay.
speak up.
We have Mr. Drew. Drew is definitely saying that he would go out. Judy would go. See, it's just starting by asking the question. And so I challenge you, whenever you have the time, I challenge you to just throw that out. Throw that out on LinkedIn or a social media page. Like, hey, I want 10 men to join me at the golf course this Saturday. Let's go and see how many. So it just takes us to be pioneers for something as simple as a golf outing or just going somewhere. I know the men around here in my area, they like frisbee golf. So all right, I will pass it along. Who has what's another collaboration idea?
It says Abby last. I'm actually Angie Doyle Scar. I hijacked my coworker's link. So
Thank you for joining.
Me on this, they're like, that is not Abby. So anyway, one of the thoughts I have is for people who work in the world of social determinants of health is, when we first started having these discussions, they were very tangible items. Like we know somebody needs food. We know somebody needs housing. And it was a few years ago when one of our large systems who started doing social determinants of health screenings, when they came to one of our meetings and said, social, and this was even pre-COVID, social isolation is the number one thing that we get listed. And I was somebody who'd been working in this space and that blew me away. I mean, it absolutely blew me away. So just even bringing awareness to people and the significance and the impacts, I think could be huge. Because again, I think a lot of people, we're still learning that, and for those of us who work in this space, but even for those who work outside of it, it's not as tangible as some of the things that we're used to thinking of people's needs.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we make that more tangible? And how do we make it so it doesn't feel so feely and soft for especially the men that we're talking about? They don't, to understand that could have a significant impact on their health and their well-being. Instead of, again, I keep on repeating it, but they understand that I need to eat every day. But to understand I need to have that social connection every day also. That goes into another sphere that I think is hard for a lot of people to be able to comprehend. So
right.
My thoughts.
I love it. I love it. We call it around here the social impacts outside of the typical social determinants of health that we think about. We think about transportation, we think about housing, we think about food, because prior to COVID, that was one of the main things that we had to conquer, right? We're all tackling those things. We knew those resources, right? But when someone comes to you and say, oh my gosh, I'm feeling alone, what do we say to them outside of, hey, I have this therapist for you, or, go and see someone? So now as public health educators, now we have to think, okay, this person doesn't want to go see a therapist. This person doesn't want to do that. What can I do? And outside of the probing, what things can we have readily available for them? Ideas, and, where can we, oh, well, hey, this person has this type of night. Let's go there. Let's you and I go there. Or, this is going on now since we're outside of COVID. Everybody's having these different things, and, hey, I heard, this was going on, but also being compassionate and empathetic to them feeling alone. Why are you feeling alone? Is it due to the only parent that you had that's now passed away? And now you need nurturing feel. So, hey, have you thought about volunteering at a nursing home? Because now you get all the motherly love, right?
Right.
And so just thinking outside of the box when we
And
think
it exasperates those other social determinants of health because of a lot of our communities work in informal networks. And that is how they work around getting in a non-traditional way resources like the food and the transportation. And so if they don't have that network, then it's exasperating the other social determinants of health when they don't have those informal networks to call upon. So great points. Thank you. This is fascinating. Thank you very much.
yeah. Thank you so much. I hope I have everybody's wheels turning. Who has another collaboration idea of what we can do? How can we move this needle forward?
DeAndreya, something else I'm thinking about is, I've seen more and more with local health departments identifying mental health or brain health as a priority, maybe in their community health needs assessment or community health improvement plan. And I think there's a few on our region that are on this call who are working towards mental health as one of our priorities. And I'm just seeing such a big connection here. And I think sometimes we might say, well, we don't offer mental health services here. So I think just recognizing that we don't have to necessarily call this mental health because we know there's a stigma attached with that, and that we can work towards social isolation efforts. And so I think this is just really beneficial conversation to try to I guess bring that up and not just focus on mental health, but actually get into the subsets of mental health and what impacts mental health, one of those being social isolation.
Right. And it's all about that needs assessment when you're dealing with that member, with that individual as well, too, digging into their psyche, Jenna, like you stated, seeing what's going on, what has impacted, because we're talking about social isolation amid COVID. But we know social isolation has been around for a very long time. And I just mentioned, someone losing a parent. Let's, having that conversation about caregivers. When you've been a caregiver for a very, very long time, and then, life happened, that person that you've been caregiving for so long, has expired. So now what do? You have to find yourself, right? You have to re-innovate who you were because for so long you were a caregiver. And so now you're feeling isolated because your friends have probably, gone on, got married, kids and family. And so they aren't the friends that you had before because now they have other responsibilities. What do you have to do? Now you have to think about finding another subset of friends. You got to do all of this. And that can wear so hard on you. But even, with that, having someone, at the health department that you can go to and like, oh my gosh, I'm feeling isolated. This is what happened. And then that person automatically saying, hey, you know what's coming up? There's a game night that they're hosting. Try to go there, make new friends, step out, things like, that things of that nature. We have someone put in the chat, Jenna.
Yeah, do you want me to share those?
Yeah, please
Okay,
share.
so Anne shared a link in the chat that was on PBS NewsHour, and I just opened it, and it's really powerful. I mean, just the simple statistic that's right at the front of the article saying, and it looks like it's a video, an 8-minute video, but saying that 20% of single men now say they don't have any close friends. So again, the impact that can have on so many health issues, from mental health to substance abuse to, all the things that we're seeing. So thanks for sharing that, Anne.
Yes,
I don't know if you have anything else you want to say about that, or if you've done any work within your organization.
So I'm really big, and that's one thing that I was going to urge everyone towards the end. I'm really keen on celebrating those national health months or national health initiatives. And so we go into May for Men's Health Month. and catering to them. So one, if you're in Polk County, you may be aware of this. Last year we hosted a main and maintain event at a local barber school, and it was free haircuts for men. Not only that, they got free haircuts, but they were able to get a lot of things done at the health fair. They could get their cholesterol checked. They could get they got a hot meal too. They got breakfast and lunch for those that visited during those times. They had, a lot of health things come to them that they could get done. So I urge you to look at those health months and seeing what you can do, how you can get people to come out, or how can you go to people, what organizations that you can partner with to get to meet them where they are. I'm all about meeting people where they are. And so free haircuts. I don't know not one guy that does not love a good haircut, unless they're just, growing it out. But most men like a haircut, and they love a free haircut. So that's one thing. But that statistic is crazy about single men.
Yeah, and then Janine shared that she said, I think that in our work roles within our own organizations and partners, we can be intentional about seeing each other as whole human beings.
Mm-hmm.
As I meet with new colleagues, I like to invite the conversation of, can we get to know each other as humans first? So yeah, I think that's another great example of, what a great way to build community engagement, just by getting to know each other on a personal level.
Yes, yes. I love that idea. And I even again, another one of my points were coffee and chat. Pick a random person that you don't typically interact with at work, and invite them to a coffee and chat, and just to, again, let's get to know each other as humans, as she stated. And so that now they feel like they may have felt alone, but now they feel like they have a friend at work, or I have a coworker friend that now I can speak to, because it may just be somebody that just walks by and doesn't say anything, just go to their workspace. So definitely once a week, or once every 2 weeks, or once a month, get someone different that you don't interact with, do a coffee and chat. And that can be over Zoom as well. Like, hey, you know what? I've seen your name on a lot of different meetings that we're on together. I would like to get to know more about you and what you do for our, for the organization as a whole, or even a community partner. Like, hey, that's a great idea. I think we have something else in the chat, Jenna.
I'm sorry, I muted y'all.
Okay.
Danielle also shared that Danielle said we have a monthly buddy system at our office. We get paired up with someone new each month to get to know each other. We go for walks, get lunch, etc. It's lovely. Danielle, that's awesome. Do you want to share where you work?
And are they hiring?
Yeah, I work at Johnson County Public Health. Yes, we have currently one position open for an environmental health specialist. But it's something that actually our wellness coordinator started. She's like, do you mind if I do this? I'm like, oh God, not at all. Because we have a fairly large department, about 55 people. And, it's pretty siloed, because we have 4 divisions that do a lot of things, separately. And so this is a way, like I always say, I'm like, I get to work with everybody as the director. I get to meet with everybody when they start, and I know all of the folks here. But if they don't have that same opportunity, there may not be reason for their paths to cross all that often. So our wellness coordinator suggested this idea to me. It's completely voluntary, so people aren't forced to do it. We do have some introverts in our office as well who are like, oh, please don't make me do that. But for people who have wanted to get to know others, there has just been absolutely nothing but, I think, great comments back about it. I know I've gotten to know some staff on just really just person to person levels. And I think it has made it a lot easier, especially if they are not my direct reports, I think it has given them a little bit more comfort in coming to talk to me with an idea as a director, whereas they might have been intimidated before. So for me, I find benefit in it that way, but for others, I just love the idea of them finding ways either that they can cross collaborate or just get to know each other as humans.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. And as we
Sure.
get to wrap up this, I want to thank everybody for their time. Thank you all for listening in and learning more about social isolation and getting those ideas of how you can move forward and push that needle so that we can get more people outside, back to what we were doing prior to COVID. Some ideas that were shared here from other organizations that we absolutely love, and hopefully you can implement them at your place of work and in your personal lives. Get to know someone. And if you see someone that's just not talking, introduce yourselves to them outside of the norms. I encourage everybody that has an introverted personality, just one day, be an extrovert and go out there and have a conversation. Do those coffee and chats. Go in and do your coffee and chats with someone, get to know a new person. And as we talk, let's challenge each other on social media or at church or wherever you are fellowshipping, asking them, hey, let's go out, or get a group of people to go out. And it looks like we need to connect with this organization to get those single men out for speed dating or something, or a pool night. But just think outside of the box of how you can do it. And even in your organizations, if you don't have something that has talked about social isolation or a wellness program, as Danielle has stated, let's innovate it. We're in the stage of having to innovate outside of COVID. How do we get together? How do we be a pair outside of COVID? So I'll leave you all with that. And thank you so much for joining me here today for your Lunch and Learn. And hopefully it was fun. I didn't have a lot of words on the screen, so you didn't have to read a lot.
Well, thank you for making that easier for us, DeAndreya. We appreciate it, and we appreciate you sharing your expertise with us, and just taking your lunch hour to be with us. So we hope to see you all in February. And we are going to have Anne joining us from Iowa HHS, and I believe she's going to be discussing disabilities with us next month. So join us for that. We're always also looking for potential topics for future Lunch and Learn. So we welcome your ideas. We want to showcase your work or others' work. So definitely get in touch with somebody. Any IPHA staff member can kind of get you pointed in the right direction with that. As I said at the beginning, there is this is going to be posted on our Lunch and Learn. And one other thing before I let you all go is I am going to throw in an evaluation link. And so if you could just take a couple more minutes of your lunch hour to fill out that evaluation, we would really appreciate that. Let me make sure I have the right link here before I throw it in the chat, but okay. This is a quick Google form, so it will not take much of your time. But if you could give me a thumbs up on that link in the chat, just so I know that you can see it, that would be great. And once you have clicked on that, you are free to go. So thanks again for joining us. And thanks again, DeAndreya.
Thank you all so much for your time. Hopefully it filled your cup a lot. Thanks.